Alright guys, let's go over the Uber uniques, where and how we can get them, and on top of that, go over some of the best ones for some of the builds. So starting right off, let's go over the generic Uber uniques. So I'm just going to kind of mention some of the ones that I wanted to highlight for certain builds, or ones that are going to be the best in slot for every single build. So starting right off, every single one of the Uber uniques that you've been dreaming of to get, like the Harlequin Crest, the Shaco, these drop all from Duriel. So he's going to be the main boss that you actually want to farm. Now, certain ones may only drop from very specific classes because, well, simply you can't equip, like, let's say a staff on a rogue. So even if you want to try to build another character, you may still have to play that character to try to get that Uber unique to drop. So, starting right off, in terms of Endura's Visage, I mean, it can apply some extra lifesteal, which could actually be pretty insane because it is a percent base. If it is going to be somehow, like, nerfed, I don't really know. But lifesteal was originally super powerful in Diablo 3 at the start, and then they started giving us, like, flat numbers. But for the most part, this could be something to look out for all classes, and it may not work with some spells, but I'm guessing all attacks are kind of the same in the game in terms of it being lifesteal. But this could be actually really big, specifically for the lifesteal for insane sustain with a lot of different builds, which can actually be pretty insane for PvP. Next up, this ability here to gain yourself the shrine. Maybe you can equip it, get the shrine bonus effect after killing the elite, and then just remove it. If it works like that, then that could be pretty good. It could open up the doors for some builds, but the Spirit of Lycander could have some potential just for snapshotting. Doombringer gives you a massive amount of life. It also technically applies shadow damage, which could be actually pretty big for Rogue, because if it just allows you to apply that shadow damage and count the shadow damage as a kill, you can get basically infinite resource. But with Tibalt's pants, these almost render this kind of useless for that sort of playstyle, but it does give you a massive amount of extra life. Next up, Harlequin Crest. This is going to be one of the best in slots for every single build, every single class, with the exception of maybe if you need Tempest Roar. Like, this is just like arguably the best item in the entire game. Plus 4 to skills is roughly 20% extra damage, but it also gives you 20% damage reduction, and it's plus 4 ranks to all of your entire skills, not just like in one category, which makes it insane. It's got life, cooldown reduction, which are 2 priority stats in most builds for the helmet slot. Absolutely a must. The Melted Heart of Salid can actually be pretty broken for PvP for any Arclash builds, so it makes your maximum resource. You're going to be taking your resource as a depletion instead of your HP when you take damage, because that could actually be pretty big, especially if you have enough regen. Sorceress has this one ability where they get to gain a bunch of resource every single time they activate an ability with a cooldown, and this could make some people immortal for PvP, so this one may need some sort of balance issues with PvP, but yeah, the fact that you can basically have this as another pool of resource, it's going to be very powerful. Next up, Ring of the Starless Skies. This could be good for a lot of builds as well, as it does have the ability to make it so your core skills are just going to have reduced cost up to 40%, and the stats on it are actually pretty solid overall now that crit strike and crit damage have been nerfed. You still want crit strike chance, but pretty much core skills, like everything on this ring is relatively good. I just wish it had life instead of, like, let's say crit strike damage. I think that would be kind of a little bit better, but overall still a very good ring if you just need some resource cost reduction. But with Tibalt's being in the game, which we'll get into eventually, that pair of pants just kind of makes all resource just irrelevant in the game, which is going to be awesome. Next up, Grandfather. This gives you an insane, and I mean insane amount of life. Like, it gives you like a quarter of your HP because it goes up to, I guess, 5,000, and on average some builds can hit like 20k life. To get that amount of life is insane, and a lot of builds may want to try to consider running this because it gives you just so much life, and on top of that, it gives you a massive amount of damage and all stats. Now, the one downside is, well, they've nerfed crit strike damage, although it does have like that X multiplier, so maybe it's still actually not that bad if it does have like some sort of other additional multiplier on the crit strike damage there. Because if you go to this one, where is it, the Ring of the Starlit Skies, it doesn't have like an X. Usually X in this game tends to mean multiplicative, so it could still be one of the best things in the entire game if that's like multiplicative damage on your crit strike damage, and this is just hands down the best thing that every single build will want to run, which I guess is Necromancer as well as Barbarian, that you can actually fulfill this slot, because you can't just run like a two-handed sword on a rogue. Alright, so these are going to next be the generic uniques, but we'll go over the more important ones. So this one just gives you overpower for certain classes. The crit strikes that overpower deal a massive amount of extra damage. This could actually be pretty good for Druid. These are generic, right? So any class can get these. And this is also from Duriel, so it might be kind of a hard drop. Next up, Fist of Fate. These actually did get a change where they're going to have a chance, instead of getting your primary resource, you just get damage. So if this rolls high, it could actually be a pretty decent thing for a lot of different builds. If you're looking to build up that stagger bar on bosses, Fist of Fate are excellent, and it's going to be dropping from the Beast in Ice. And then we have Flicker Step. This is going to be really good for any builds that really want ultimate cooldown reduction to kind of spam on something. So if each time you evade through an enemy, it reduces your active ultimate cooldown by 2 to 4 seconds, up to 10 seconds. So this could be kind of cool for more niche builds. However, there could be something actually pretty broken in the game. It says if you evade through an enemy. Now, teleport actually counts as your evade when you get the enchantment with, let's say, Oculus, right? So if I teleport through like several enemies, if this registers with this, well, this is going to be pretty broken for some like sort of like lightning builds, like actually super insane, which I'm super excited to test out. If it does work like that, yeah, that's going to be broken. And that's another one from Duriel. So I'm assuming Duriel's just going to be the best boss to actually farm the game. But I'll show off gameplay of how to actually farm all these bosses, because technically the season isn't out at the time of me making this video, and we'll have to see what the mechanics are. I'm guessing you can't just go walk in like Uber Lilith and just farm it again and again. It's weird that none of these even drop from Uber Lilith, which it'd be kind of cool if they did. Anyways, next up, Frostburn. This could be okay for any builds that really need to focus in on freezing. I've seen some Sorc builds run it, but overall the chance is just simply too low for like the Ice Shards build. Most of them won't drop it, but this drops from Echo Varshan, Beast and Ice. Then we have the God Slayer. So when you stun, freeze, or immobilize an elite enemy, or a damaged boss, it pulls in the enemies, but most of the time the bosses, you're not going to be able to like pull them in. But if it does pull in the boss, I mean, okay, but it doesn't like, it may just build up that stagger bar, right? But you deal 30 to 60% X increased damage to them for 3 seconds. The downside with this is it can only occur once every 12 seconds. And I think most people would rather just run Shaco anyways, because that's 20% extra bonus damage. And on top of that, it has some of like the best stats in the game. If it didn't have that cooldown, I think it'd be kind of cool. Next up though, Mother's Embrace. This thing is just like a whatever. You can get it from technically doing the campaign, Echo of Varshan, or the Beast and Ice. Penitent Greaves. I get this question asked all the time. Where do we farm these? This is going to be from Gregor the Galvanic Saint or Lord Seer. These boots are actually the best in slot for a lot of builds, as it applies a multiplicative damage of 7 to 10%. Next up, we got the Soul Brand. So this is a unique chest armor. Instead of your potion healing you, it grants you a barrier, but while you have a barrier, it grants you damage reduction. You could literally just get a piece of armor that has rolls life and damage reduction on it. I see no point of getting this, even with an aspect, kind of just useless. That's also one from Duriel though. Facets of the Dawning Sky. When you take damage from non-physical type, you gain extra resistance. This could be the best slot for certain builds, maybe for some of the Uber bosses, because gaining that 10% to extra maximum resistance beats the cap of 70%, and you can go up to 85. But I think it depends on the rest of the rolls. Again, this is at the time you make this video, they don't have all the exact rolls on what the thing applies. If it doesn't apply really good other bonuses, like it has maximum life or damage reduction, then this thing might not even be good at all. Now we're moving on to the best thing. This is from Beast Nice. The next thing is also from Duriel. Seems like every single good item is from Duriel. Tibalt's Will. You deal 20 to 40% X multiplicative increased damage while unstoppable, and you can get perma unstoppable with one of the new vampiric powers, and everyone's going to be running that, which is Metamorphosis. And while unstoppable for 4 seconds after, you become unstoppable and gain 50 of your primary resource. So basically half of your resource just instantly when you just use your little like dodge ability when you turn into a vampire, little bats. And again, you just keep on activating that every 4 seconds. So perma unstoppable, perma like 50 resource every 4 seconds. That's amazing. And you deal a massive amount of extra damage. I mean, you literally can't ask for anything else. Unless it has some sort of roll where it gives you like minus 50% HP. This is like the best in slot. And again, that's from Duriel. Next up, Razor Plate. That's for Lord Zir. It just gives you a bunch of thorns. Temerity, it doesn't really matter. Well, it drops from Lord Zir, but because Tibalt exists, it's just like there's no way you don't run Tibalt in every single build. Temerity, though, it does give you the ability to grant yourself barrier for classes that don't have barrier. And you can maybe, if you have extra like a ring slot and you want to do more damage, or get lucky hit chance while you have a barrier, this could enable more builds for the game. So that's one thing to kind of take note of. And then we have the X-Falls Corroded Signet, which makes so your damage over time effects have a 50% chance to erupt, dealing some sort of damage the same type to nearby enemies. This could be really good. A lot of times with these damage numerical numbers, because it's not a core skill, it doesn't scale off all these extra bonuses, it actually becomes worthless. If it is good, well, it drops from Duriel. So maybe this could be something to consider as well for even dot builds. But as far as the rest of the items, these ones are relatively easy for most of the classes classes to obtain. I'm just going to go ahead and highlight some of the more important ones that you may want to consider, as I'm not going to try to extend this video longer than necessary. But there is a new one for Barbarian called the Tusk Helm of the Jorits, which is a mighty helm. It makes so when you gain berserking while you're already berserking, you have a chance to become more enraged, so you get 15x increased damage, anti fury per second, and 10% cooldown reduction. You know what also gives you cooldown reduction and like more damage? Well, Shaco. So I don't really like, even though it's a new one, I just think that it's kind of eh. Opus could be good if you really want to stack a bunch of resource. I've seen some people use this with just your basic skill builds. That could be something to consider. There's also Fields of Crimson, which I think Rupture, more than likely people are just going to run other things. But this is something I'll go ahead and mention. I'm not sure if people really want to play Upheaval, but if this does actually do good damage, it could be something to consider. But a lot of times you may not scale like, you know, the non-physical damage with Barbarian. But as far as Barbarians go, there is one chest piece. Okay, the Rage of Harath gives you extra cooldown reduction, so this one is actually viable. This one drops from Lord Zir, and then the Ramalani's is also Lord Zir, and this one doesn't really matter. It drops from Duriel, but again, Shaco is just pretty much better. Next up, Druid has a new toy to play around with, where when you cast Boulder while Hurricane is active, it spins around, it pushes them back, so unfortunately it kind of seems bad, at least on paper. We'll have to wait and see if they actually make it so it sucks the enemies in, because you don't want to push enemies away if you want to hit them multiple times. Drops from Duriel, that's a newer thing. Druid actually has some of the best stuff though in general. Just most of the things honestly on Druid are pretty good, like even like the Waxing Gibbous, this is a pretty awesome item. This drops from Beast and Ice and Gregor, so this is cool for the stealth. The Shred Druid, also with the Crone, that's another like thing that you can mess around with, the Shred Druid, really good stuff. That's Lord Zir, Echo of Varshan. There's also Mad Wolf's Glee, that's Lord Zir, Echo of Varshan. And then Duriel is the one that drops the Tempest Roar. So if you don't get it, you're going to have to wait all the way to the very end, which you might need to be level 100 to face off Duriel, because he's like the final boss of the new season. So that's where you get that one. As far as the Necromancer one goes, there's actually some really good uniques for Necromancer. Lidless Wall is from Lord Zir. There's also the Deathless Visage. That one's also from Lord Zir. And the most important one I think a lot of people want to be on the lookout for, there's also Blood Moon Breaches, which could actually be okay if anyone wants to play some like Blood Nova build for overpower damage. That's also from Duriel. But Ring of Menelin is from the Beast in Ice. So this one over here, yeah, that's one of the best things for any of the minion builds. Now, as far as rogues go, a lot of people do like the Condemnation for the combo points, so you can get extra bonuses. And when you get the bonus movement speed with Twisting Blades, there's a Vampiric power that gives you more damage based off of your movement speed, because it gives you more attack speed. So that one's from Beast in Ice and the Echo of Varshan. That one's pretty good. Eagle Horn is from the Beast in Ice. I actually like that one a lot. And then Scoundrel's Leather could be pretty good as well. And this is also from Duriel, unfortunately, so you're going to really have to wait. As far as Wind Force, unfortunately, I still think it's kind of weak. The Word of Hakan could be used for some like Rain of Arrows spam, and that's Beast of Gregor, or the Beast in Ice and Gregor the Galvanic Sync. Now, as far as the Sorceress ones go, the ones that have some potential, Blue Rose is a Nero one that makes it so these ice spikes can actually happen, which is great for any of the Blizzard builds that actually deal a massive amount of damage if the enemy is frozen. If these are good damage stats, Blue Rose could actually be really, really good and one of the best rings in the game for any of the builds that can benefit off the ice spikes, which is also from Duriel. It's also a buff to the Asadoras. I don't know if it's going to be good, but it's off of Lord Zir. And then Rhymet of the Infinite is a pretty good one as well. That's Lord Zir and Echo of Varshan. And I think one of the best changes that we got is the Oculus getting actual good damage. So they basically, it's 315% is the number that they're giving us for the bonus damage instead of getting the restored primary resource. Now they're just giving us like a really good solid item. And this is from the Beast and Ice. So if you're playing Sorceress, yeah, Oculus is just a fantastic item. I think usually it's just Rhymet and Oculus that people are looking out for. But let's go over where to actually find these bosses and what you're going to need to do in order of these steps. I do plan to make a more detailed guide, but I figure I'll include a quick one in this video. So starting right off, these bosses, you cannot just walk in and fight. You actually have to have a few different steps. You need to acquire certain things. So starting right off, let's go over how to summon Lord Zir. So to summon Lord Zir, you're going to need to do Legion events and world bosses. And you're going to need to acquire, of course, this thing called Exquisite Blood. Now, certain difficulties will require more of whatever item that you need. A lot of them are like 9, or some of them are like 1 to 2. It depends on the boss. But nonetheless, you need multiples of these, and you're going to be doing, again, legions and world bosses. And then after you get enough of them, again, depending on the difficulty that you're doing, you're going to actually need to go over here. to the Ancient's Seal over here. And then some of these you'll have to like kind of walk through, but it's a really short. It's not like a full dungeon. And then the next boss over here, we're going to be going over the Beast in Ice. So with the Beast in Ice, you're going to need to collect Distilled Fear. You need 9 of these. You can obtain these by doing level 30 or higher in the tier of the Nightmare Dungeons. It's not like you get a guaranteed one every single time. It's random, but that's how you actually get it. And once you get enough, you're actually going to be doing the boss inside the Glacial Fissure, and this is where it's on the map. The next boss is Gregor. So this one is going to be requiring living steel from tortured offerings, and this is inside of Hell Tides. So you're going to have to wait for Hell Tides to go up. It's 300 blood shards to open up the chest, and that's how you get what's called living steel. And Gregor is located over here in the Hall of the Penitent, so over on the left side of the map. And then the next one is Varshan. Varshan is obtained by getting malignant body parts from doing the Tree of Whisper, the caches. However, you can still get parts by doing world bosses. Sometimes like things just happen in the game, and you can definitely get the body parts by just playing the game. I've been in the vampire areas, and sometimes you can just get some of the parts there. But you obtain these random body parts. You can also go to the person that does the potions, and you can actually swap some. So if you get too many of the body parts, because it requires like a head, a bone, and it requires like a variety of different parts in order to summon them, that's what you can do as well. And to actually access Varshan, it's actually right where you would turn in over at this area over here called the Malignant Burrow. It's the Tree of Whispers. Just go over there and you'll see that there's a little thing that you can click on. This one you get to like instantly. And then the final one is actually Duriel. So where is Duriel and how do we actually fight him? So he's going to require mucus, slick eggs, and shards of acne. So those drop from the Echo of Varshan and Gregor, the Galvanic Saint. So you have to do the other bosses to get the pieces to do the other big boss, which is Duriel. And Duriel on the map is going to be located over here on the bottom left in the Gaping Crevice. This one is pretty hard. Overall, most of them, as long as you're a pretty decent player, you should be able to do it at about level 60 to 70. The Beast in Ice is a little bit harder. I would recommend to be at least level 80 trying to do Beast of Ice, and Duriel is by far the hardest. So if you don't happen to feel confident on some of the other ones, if you can't do the other bosses, don't do Duriel, because he's going to be very hard. Once you consume those consumables, that's it. You don't get a refund. If you fail it, you do get to go in multiple times. You can keep on going in, but like if you can't kill it, you might have to hit up a friend. But nonetheless, that's where you actually can access these bosses and how to summon them. I'll do a more detailed video that goes over like a full video format, but I just want to include a short one in this because I felt like it was necessary. That's going to wrap it up. Those are where we get some of the best uniques in the entire game, and I kind of highlighted the ones that you may want to be on the lookout for. But that's going to wrap things up. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. If you're new here, hit subscribe, turn the bell so you don't miss out on more new content. And I'll show you guys the boss fights very soon. Take care. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.